Inflation, it might be the greatest lie ever told. And you have 7.5 billion people on this planet unaware that they're living in modern day slavery.
Things are looking hairy in financial markets this week as a strengthening dollar is causing fears that things could be coming undone. Coupled with the new inflation print coming out tomorrow, we might be in for more short-term pain for assets globally, including Bitcoin. And with less than a week to go before he's sworn in, all eyes will be on Donald Trump as he faces the potential unwind of the global economy in the first week of his presidency. Today we look at a masterful interview from Jeff Booth, who believes the current state of the economy might just force Trump to make an emergency executive order to buy Bitcoin in order to backstop the collapse of the entire monetary system. We're less than a week away until Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, and the global economy is quickly deteriorating. The DXY, which measures the US dollar's strength against a number of large-scale global currencies, has been rising to levels not seen since 2022. Markets have rallied since late 2022, partially because everyone believed that we had seen a peak in dollar strength and a peak in bond yields. But now global yields are surging towards new highs despite the Fed cutting rates, which is signaling to investors that the Fed may be forced to slow or stop cutting rates completely. If rate cuts are slowed or stopped, that means the cost to borrow money will remain higher for longer, which translates into people selling assets into dollars, which further strengthens the dollar. Most investors had expected long-term bond yields would fall once the Fed started cutting rates, but the exact opposite is now happening. Could this be a sign that investors have lost confidence in US bonds due to extreme fiscal deficits and the ever-ballooning debt? If so, this could be signaling fears of an all-out currency crisis. If it's allowed to continue without any intervention, the trend of dollar up, assets down will likely only accelerate. And to add fuel to the fire, the Fed is announcing a new inflation print tomorrow, and many are expecting inflation to continue to rise, which could force the Fed's hand on future interest rate decisions and cause further bleeding in markets. So what can Trump do to fix this situation? This brings me to Jeff Booth's interview with Natalie Brunell this week. In the interview, Jeff outlines in a clear and concise way why our current debt-based monetary system is actually anti-free market, and why Bitcoin is imposing the first true free market onto the entire world.
Every single thing that an entrepreneur creates to create more value is competing against something that was there before and people were using. And if they don't create more value, they fail.
Right.
And if they create more value, we use the thing that creates more value. And the output of that is some of the other's business is impaired and the new business grows. And the output of that is prices fall. Meaning there is no inflation rate. There's no zero inflation rate. The natural state of the market is not zero. It's not 2%. It's not 5%. It's the productivity rate of the world expanding. You cannot measure what I'm saying from the system you're measuring from. And the chart that you just described, I hate that chart because every single thing in that chart is also manipulated by the money supply. TVs, computers would have fallen way faster. iPhones would have fallen way faster. The entire chart is being manipulated by money supply, and everything in it is being measured. So you have to be outside of the system to see the real truth of how fast prices are falling. That's why Bitcoin is outside of the system. It's bounded by energy. It's outside of the system. So you can see the true rate of what I'm talking about. So what does that mean, what I just described? What it means is we have never lived in a global free market. You have no reference frame for what I'm talking about. No one on the planet has a reference frame for what I'm talking about. The way your brain will compare things is compare from what has existed before and then try to make an association with what the new thing is. And what's happening on Bitcoin is it's imposing a new set of rules and it's ruining people's reference frame. It's imposing what I just described. You actually, if you're living in Bitcoin, you're living in the start of the first global free market the world has ever seen. Within time, 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people. The only thing that could change that, what I just said, is if somehow Bitcoin became centralized or insecure. But otherwise, it doesn't care that I'm saying this. It is imposing a free market force on the world. And everybody else is negotiating against their belief system and that happening. Mm-hmm. Right? Inflation, it might be the greatest lie ever told. And you have 7.5 billion people on this planet literally living in modern day slavery, unaware that they're living in modern day slavery. And so take 7.5 billion people out of modern day slavery and add them to the free market where their minds and their and can create value for us too. and you'll have a faster rate of deflation. You'll have a faster rate of abundance for everybody.
I highly recommend you check out this full Jeff Booth masterclass on inflation, deflation, and Bitcoin. I'll leave a link in the description. What I find particularly mind-blowing about Booth's insights is that the natural state of the economy is deflationary, which means anything above a negative inflation rate is quite literally theft. And Trump may be in power during a pivotal time in history. If he continues to service the debt with more money printing, he risks spiking inflation up towards double digits again in the coming years, and potentially leading to hyperinflation and all-out currency collapse. If he doesn't print, he risks asset prices continuing to plummet and the potential for the whole bubble of the global banking system to pop. So what are his options? Well, Jeff Booth seems to think that his hand will be forced early in his presidency, and he will have to make an executive order to buy Bitcoin as part of an emergency strategic reserve.
Do you think that we will get a strategic Bitcoin reserve and that the government has some sort of plan in place to create a Bitcoin-backed dollar in the same way that we had the petrodollar, which countries are now moving away from?
Do I think that that's going to happen? Absolutely. I think that's going to happen. Somebody has to do that. I suspect Trump is going to do this early in his presidency, because if he doesn't, then it's going to be a shit show for his presidency, because you're going to have to print so much money or have a deflationary spiral. And this is a way to essentially print the money into something that drives prosperity for U.S. citizens. And if he doesn't, some other countries will. Right now, you're facing this liquidity crunch. And at some point, like Larry Lepard's new book, The Big Print, might be launched just in time so you can read it before the big print.
Oh my gosh.
And so relative to that money being debased at a crazy rate, Bitcoin will go through the roof, because it's also the only non-counterparty risk asset in the world tethered to the other system. And there's going to be a supply crunch in it. You could see some fireworks next year in this, but by US printing into that, they gain the benefit of the rise. So I suspect that is going to happen. I suspect that's going to happen early in Trump's term. Again, I can't say for sure, but if I'm measuring probabilities, it seems like the natural thing that they have to do. Wow. And if they don't, this is just game theory at a nation state level now, and somebody's going to do this.
Wow.
So all eyes will be on Trump in his first few weeks, and the fate of the global economy and the dominance of the US dollar quite literally hang in the balance. But the important thing to remember as an investor is that for now, government debt is still the underlying collateral for the entire global banking system. If this unwind is allowed to continue without intervention, the entire banking system is insolvent and everything comes crashing down. But that will almost certainly not be allowed to happen. The only solution they've used up to this point is further currency debasement. But Bitcoin could offer a novel and attractive way to end the cycle of currency debasement and theft once and for all. The question remains, will Trump be the one to make the first move? We'll just have to wait and see. Either way, in times like these, you want hard assets without counterparty risk. And the strength of both Bitcoin and gold tells us investors are starting to understand this. The last time the dollar was at these levels, Bitcoin was below $20,000 and gold was around $16.50 an ounce. Today, Bitcoin is above $95,000 and gold is up 63% from the 2022 lows. So stay calm and remember what you own. And if you're lucky enough to have some cash on the sidelines, you have some great buying opportunities. But don't wait for a further dip that might not materialize. You can't afford to be caught on the sidelines if the Trump admin announces a strategic Bitcoin reserve in week 1. So buy the dip now with Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching for Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. You go from signing up to buying Bitcoin in minutes. Plus, you get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with 0 fees. Also, big news for those that live in New York, Swan's complete suite of Bitcoin financial services is now available in the Empire State. So visit swan.com today to get started. And quick shout out to Mara, the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. That's it for today. Let me know what you think of this riveting setup for Bitcoin and the global economy in the comments below. Like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more high signal Bitcoin content. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.